He's been away for a long while.
But he's just got back.
Yes, I have returned. Hello everyone, welcome back to Authentic Story Making. I'm so glad you're here. Today's video theme is, where do you find your stories? So I picked up this book recently from Goodwill, and obviously due to the title, I was very intrigued, and I even skimmed through the chapter headings, and everything in there looked really good. So I bought it, and then when I started reading it, I realized that it was actually written for public speaking scenarios.
I've been cheated.
How to use storytelling to further your points in your speech and to connect with audiences more. And so then I was wondering, is this going to do me any good? But digging into it, the concepts are all the same. It has to do with telling stories. So what I'm going to be doing is taking the concepts in the tools in this book and tailoring them towards writing fantasy fiction. And it is not going to be plagiarization, because right in the introduction of this book he says, teach what you learn in this book to someone else.
Seems fair.
And so as I discover the things that are helpful, I'm going to share them with you guys. Help cement them in my own mind and incorporate them into my story making process. Where do you and I find the stories that we will eventually put down onto paper? To me, it's the imagery of a great treasure hunt, or even a hunt of artifacts, as it were. So I don't know if anyone out there has ever gone thrift sailing or antique shopping, but a lot of times what it is you're finding these old pieces of furniture or decor or whatever it be, and a lot of times what people will do is they will find them and restore them, or maybe piece them together with other things and create something brand new. And that's kind of what it's like when we are out finding our stories. We are looking for pieces, artifacts that are pre-existing, and we're going to take them and polish them up, restore them, and then we're going to piece them together with other ideas and form a brand new, exciting, and living story. How do we go about this? Where are we going to find these stories? And I like that the question is actually, where do you find your stories versus how do you do it? Because that is what it's all about. I believe every one of us, especially those who really want to write, have that desire in us. Every one of us come across stories every day of our lives. So for one example, a big one for me is when I'm listening to music, especially music with lyrics. This happened to me just today, actually, in the office. I was not too busy, so I was listening to music, had my earbuds in, focusing in on the lyrics of the song. And this idea just out of nowhere, and the feeling was just, the idea hit. This is it. This is an idea that is gold in the rough. And as I began ruminating over it and thinking about it, how can I incorporate this into what I have existing in my story, it all came together, and I think it's going to be really cool.
Somebody cool me down. Somebody put me out. I'm too much.
But I can't tell you what it is because spoilers. All I can say is that it drastically affects the main character for the majority of the story. And no, it is not what you're thinking.
Kill him. Kill him now.
Another one, a big one that I've actually talked about with my siblings before, because we like to watch movies together. And a lot of times we will like an element of a story in a movie, a plot, or how we feel like the direction of it is kind of going, and then it doesn't. And then the movie ends up doing something I didn't want originally. But that's awesome, because then I can take the idea that was going through my head, move it over, put it into my own scenarios that are unique in my story and world, and polish it up, combine it with other elements, and there's that idea in place. So honestly, if there are books, movies that you kind of like, or there's one part of it that you really like but it doesn't turn out the way you want, instead of that disappointment, take that as a really interesting cue for your own story. Perhaps the most effective place that I've personally discovered for finding stories is actually in solitude. As hard as it can be to practice something like solitude, and even as an introvert surprisingly, still when I do, I consistently find inspiration and motivation come back to me. In other news, my book, The King's Sword, that I wrote about 10 years ago, has hit the BookTube Christian community. People are reading it, reviewing it, and first of all, I just want to thank everyone who is currently giving it a chance. I really appreciate it, and the feedback that I'm getting is so good. You know, criticism, it can be painful, it can hurt.
Raining. Ow! It's raining. It's raining. You broke my heart.
So criticism can be painful, honestly, but it is important. And we have to take it in stride and be willing to improve out of it. And I think I'm finally getting to that spot, especially when got it.
Speed of hand. Speed of mind.
Because I know that I can do better and I genuinely want to do better. So that criticism is really helping me a lot. To know what are the pieces that are actually standing out to people, the elements of the story that they love and want to see more of, the parts that they do not get into. It's very different, a lot of it, from what I thought. So I'm learning a lot. And one of the things that this actually has helped me do, and I want to start doing this more often in my writing process, is take pauses to pull back and give my story a bird's eye view. Because when I'm down in the thick of it, writing it word for word, it's very easy to get chaotic and complicated and lose sight of where I'm going, and kind of in that lose sight of a lot of the things that really matter and what readers are really more interested in anyway. And that was one of the points that John Walsh brought out in the chapter on where to find your story. He had a section on keeping it simple, and that is very true. Whenever I approach writing a new fantasy novel, I always am unconsciously gearing myself towards that fantasy epic that is so interwoven and complicated and massive. And I just get lost in the weeds. And I'm finding that if I keep it simple, maybe start with one singular idea that is the catalyst for the book, that maybe the climax, even kind of thinking of, this is maybe going to be a short story, like along those lines. And invariably, in my own experience, it's going to expand and flesh out, and it's going to probably turn into a much lengthier novel than I had planned, but it's probably going to be a lot more coherent and interesting because I was keeping it simple and on point and just focused on making the story itself a good story. So to recap and to come back to kind of what I started with, every one of us, you and I, whether we're conscious of it or not, we are finding stories every day through what we are experiencing, through work, through interacting with people, watching movies, taking a walk, reading other books, experiencing life. We are finding stories, and we are finding those artifacts all around us. And it's all about becoming conscious of it and recognizing it. But that's all I wanted to talk about in this video today. And I'm back. I have a bunch of other videos planned. I've been working on the ideas for them during my time off, and I just haven't had the energy or motivation up until now to actually start filming them. But I got it back. We're back in business, and thank you guys for being here.